Cool. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So the way that I like to do this is to kind of just start from the left and go to the right. I think that's the easiest way to kind of introduce the different elements of it. And that way we can also build up a story together from scratch. So we'll start with brain dump. Brain dump is everything you know about the story. So it doesn't have to be a very structured or clear thing. You can kind of just stream of consciousness style write down what you know. So let's take some suggestions from everyone in the class for what kind of story you want to explore for the next hour or so.
Can we do something as a thriller involving a scammer, which at the end of the story he wants, which is the hard part, kill his victim?
Scammer, you said a thriller?
Yeah, it's a thriller, suspense.
Okay. I like that. And you said the idea is that at the end,
Yeah, he wants to keep all the money and he wants to kill his victims, but then there's a twist going on, and the victim is going to be the one who's going to win.
okay, and a surprise twist.
Mhm.
The victim is the survivor. Do you have an idea of what kind of scammer we're dealing with?
Someone who works in like a resort, as an example, and he has all the information he needs because he sells vacation to the victims, and that's how he gets them.
Okay, he sells vacations.
Yeah.
I have an idea that I'd like to add. So let's say the story takes place in Shanghai. I don't want to take place in Shanghai.
Put it in a tropical island somewhere.
Tropical Island is fun. How about South Caicos?
Sure.
That's how you spell Caicos.
Or
And
even Dominican Republic.
the scammer takes people on boat rides to harvest lunch. That's something I did on a vacation to South Caicos. It's very fun. Okay, so genre, we already know that we're doing this thriller / suspense genre. You can, this section affects the outline, and I believe it also affects the synopsis and beats and prose. Just gonna quickly make a note to check on that later. The genre affects the synopsis. So any other ideas for, so in addition to just the genre, you can also put things like tropes that you want included or subgenres. Is there anything else that people are interested in adding to this that would affect the synopsis? That's the main thing we care about for next.
It's a criminal organization that scammer is having. So I'm not sure how you want to.
Yeah. Let's keep going for now. Now let's talk about style. So you actually don't have to edit style until later. But does anyone have any ideas of the kind of style that would be interesting for this story to be written in? Kinds of things that you can put here are short sentences, lots of dialogue, show, don't tell. You can also put in the point of view you want. So like first person point of view versus third person point of view. And you can also put in the tense here. So if you want it to be past tense or present tense.
For the fun of it, we could put it into the victim point of view.
Okay.
That would be something we don't see often.
Yeah, story is written from the victim's point of view, first person present tense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do a lot of show, don't tell. So we want a lot of information of what it's going to
Okay.
do, give the name to the personage and all that.
Yeah. I like to also write lots of sensory descriptions and action, because I think that this makes it slightly more clear to the AI what we mean by show don't tell, which is don't tell me like what's going on like with the plot or in the minds of the characters. Instead, show me what's going on with the characters by what they do and what they say, etc.
And a lot of dialogue.
Lots of dialogue. Bueno. Okay, so from here, we get to click our first big juicy purple button, which is the generate synopsis. So synopsis establishes who are the characters, what are their goals, what's the central conflict, how the story begins and how it ends. It also sort of conveys the tone and the themes and unique elements of the story. So like if the synopsis sounds very happy, but you want a very dark story, you should modify this synopsis to sound very dark. So let's take a read. I'm going to kind of skim this for the sake of our limited time. So nested in South Caicos, a scammer lurks within the resort, preying on unsuspecting vacationers. Armed with his charm and charisma, he definitely sells them dream vacations by harvesting their personal information beforehand. The scammer's latest scheme involves taking people on boat rides, where he can further swindle them out of their hard-earned money. The main character in this suspenseful thriller is one such victim who has been lured into the scammer's web of deceit. As the trap tightens around them, tensions rise, fraught with danger, increasingly desperate, deadly game of cat and mouse, methods become ruthless. Okay, so the first thing I'm noticing is that this synopsis is super vague. So the first thing I'm going to do is in genre, I'm going to write, you can write graphic violence and dark/adult themes, because I think it might be vague because it's like, I don't want to say the K word.
I like that.
So I'm going to rewrite and say, please replace all of the vague ideas with specific plot points and surprises. Please give names to the scammer and the protagonist, the victim. Say, please give full names. So I'm using rewrite here because I want to make big changes to the whole thing. One thing that you might want to note is that if you just want to make small changes like, oh, please change it from harvesting conch to, tropical fish, you should just type in, tropical fish, because it's actually going to use up a decent amount of words to do the rewrite. But in this case, I actually do want it to replace kind of the whole thing. I'm also going to write at the ending, make the ending a shocking twist where the protagonist lives despite the scammer's web of deceit. Okay, let's see if we get
Could
something.
I ask a quiz? Could I ask a quick question? Tongue twister. When you just do that regeneration, what happens if you were to hit that 800 word limit in the synopsis? Can you increase the 800 word limit?
You can't increase the 800 word limit. If you're using rewrite will never surpass that. As you can see here, it did 272 out of 800.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just add something on to here just for the sake of exploring this question a little bit further.
Yep.
You write the synopsis to be super duper long, at least
Okay.
20 paragraphs. So if we tell it to do that,
What
how
will it
much
do?
words will it give us?
It'll just stop, will it? It'll just truncate, I suppose.
Okay, it's giving us up to 559 words.
Right.
And one thing that I wanted to just quickly demonstrate is that we have this history button, and history saves the different versions of things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So
it's not putting any dates on. Oh, it is. The dates are on the left-hand side. Sorry. Okay.
So I wanted to restore this version. Okay, so in the beautiful islands of South Caicos, a skilled scammer named Marcus works at a resort. So for example, I want to give the resort a name. Works
Ryan.
at,
Ryan.
yes.
So one of the things that I found, if you are in the genre box and you put in some tropes and themes, it will guide some of your conflict that takes place in your
Yep.
yeah. So that's one of the reasons why you would put some tropes in there.
Yep, that's a good point. So if we had put tropes like what was the time loop one that Tomas suggested, then we would probably have some stuff like that coming up in here. But let's see how well we got. I'm going to read a little bit further and see. Wait just a moment, John, and then we'll get to your question. So a skilled scammer named Marcus works at a resort. There was call it a resort called the something oyster, the Sapphire Oyster. That sounds cool. How do you spell sapphire? 2 P's.
2 P's.
He sells dream vacations to unsuspecting tourists by gathering their personal information beforehand. His latest con involves taking people out on boat rides where he can swindle them out of more money. One of his victims is a corporate lawyer named Julia, who's on a vacation with her husband. As the days pass, she becomes increasingly suspicious of Marcus and his intentions. She discovers that he has been stealing their personal information, using it to access their bank accounts. In a heart-pounding twist, Marcus reveals that he plans to kill Julia and her husband. However, Julia is able to turn the tables on him and manages to escape with her life. She discovers that her husband was actually in on the scam and was planning to leave her for Marcus. Wow. That was a shocking surprise. Julia's fight for survival leads her deep into the island's conch harvesting industry, where she teams up with local fishermen named Miguel. Together, they uncover a web of corruption and deceit that threatens the entire island. That's cool. I feel like the stakes are high, which is something that I like. As the climax approaches, Julia and Miguel, I always am looking for this word confront. I want to replace that with something like more specific. Like, what do you mean confront? Like, they have a conversation at lunch, or is it like
challenge, maybe
hopefully something more exciting? Marcus, in a final showdown on a deserted island. Okay, so they give us a showdown, but I still want to know more what showdown means. In a shocking twist, it's revealed that Julia has been working with the authorities to bring down Marcus and his criminal organization. In the end, Julia emerges as the hero and survivor. So it's interesting. I kind of expected, the way I was imagining it is that, like, for the majority of the story, we would expect Julia to get killed. But then I realized it would be difficult to tell that story from Julia's point of view. Like, how would we know that she's going to get killed if it's written from her point of view? Because if it was obvious to her that she's going to get killed, then she would probably do something about it earlier on in the story. So it would be like a surprise for her to get killed. So does anyone...
That's why she survived. That's why she can tell the story.
Yeah. Does anyone have any changes that they think we should make to this before we move on? Obviously,
would
we're
ask
not
it-
really writing this book right now, so we
I-
can't, we don't have time to make it perfect, but if there's any quick, easy to change ideas people have, we can work them in.
I would ask it, if you rewrite the synopsis at any point, I would ask it to identify the red herrings. So that you know that which ones are coming up, so that whenever it does the outline, ideally it should give you the red herrings so that you can pay special attention to those.
That's a great idea. I'm going to say add in red herrings in parentheses like this.
And you can also ask it to add in associated tropes and themes. Whenever, I don't know how you want to put that in there, but I would
Yeah.
actually ask it to do that at some point for the outline, or you may
Yeah.
want to, once your outline's generated, put it there.
Okay. That's a good idea, but I think we won't do it right now just for the sake of time. I do like this idea of putting in the red herrings though. So Marcus appears to be working alone. Julia's husband seems to be oblivious to Marcus's scheme. So this is great. This will be helpful for writing as you go. We'll see if this actually ends up affecting the outline in an interesting way. Cool. So now for characters, you can click generate on characters. So we have Julia. Start thinking in the back of your head if anyone has ideas for Julia and Marcus's last names. I like to have last names. John, you have your hand up. Did you have a question?
Well, it was just, I mean, it's a bit off track now. It's a little bit about the synopsis structure. I know from other conversations in other sessions, people talk about the fact that you can instruct the AI through putting things in square brackets to tell it specific things to do. Is there any way with a synopsis that you can group what you want to put in specific chapters this early on? So like you've got, say, 5 paragraphs here.
Yes.
Could you say that first paragraph is chapter 1, second is chapter 2, third is chapter 3, or some combination,
Yeah.
or it's Act 1, Act 2? Is there any way you can force the system to recognize that?
Yeah, let's try it. Let's see. So I'm gonna actually write like background, and
Okay.
then
So just those square brackets are enough to control that. There's no rules about that. Then it's just
well, I
it's
have no idea if this is gonna work or not. This is a new
okay.
idea. So I'm gonna have like chapters
all right.
maybe 1 and 2 are the sort of setup,
Yeah.
and then maybe chapter 3, 4 is this like entering the new world, which is where she's on an island and there's someone who wants to kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add, we'll only be able to tell at a very high level whether or not
Well,
this
just do the first few. I mean, don't sort of spend
Yeah.
too much time on it. It's,
Yeah.
now you've got other things to cover.
Yeah,
So
we'll see how it goes. So Julia, I love this last name, Jaeger. Nice job, Tomas. That does sound like Julia's last name. So I don't actually suggest doing add surnames, but the other parts, yeah, okay. Now, since there's the idea of doing multiple, we can do those in here. So surnames, character personality profiles. So I'll say add surnames.
Physical description.
Yeah, physical descriptions.
Personality profile, like Myers-Briggs or any of the others.
Personality types.
Language.
Also, I'm just gonna say also any interesting character
Works.
dynamics, like any characters that don't get along at all or have a secret crush. I like to know stuff like that. And so these other ideas, yeah, dialogue styles or mannerisms, those are all great ideas. Okay, Julia, tall, slender woman with striking blue eyes, short blonde hair. corporate lawyer. She's intelligent and resourceful. I'm gonna make her striking blue eyes and short blonde hair. I like the idea of making her like She-Hulk, because that was a lawyer I watched recently on Disney Plus. Give her, she's short, curly haired, brown.
I am.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why you only have 700 words for characters?
Yes. So the word limits are because there's word limits to how much the AI can pay attention to at a given point in time. And so when we say like generate the outline, we're feeding in the characters and the synopsis. And if we have an infinitely long characters list, it's just too much information for the AI all at once to be able to write the outline. I want to check what we tried in the synopsis. So what I'm expecting is that chapter 1 and 2 should be dedicated to Julia's vacation, and she's becoming suspicious of Marcus and eventually discovers that he's been stealing their information and using it to access their bank accounts. And Julia's husband should appear to be oblivious to the scheme.
I guess you could use the same control on characters as well. So you could say that you only want characters to appear in certain chapters.
Yeah, you could
Yeah,
try that.
you want to save a couple of characters for
Yeah.
later on, so they
Like
don't
it all doesn't
I
appear.
find that works better at the beat level when you
at the
mention
beat level. Okay.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's one interesting sort of thing to keep in mind, which is called recency bias, which is the last thing that the AI looks at is the thing that it will pay attention to the most.
Okay.
So for generating prose, the last thing it looks at is the beat and the style, actually.
Yeah.
So the beats and style are the most influential parts for influencing prose. So let's see what happens in chapter 1. Julia Yeager, a successful corporate lawyer, arrives in South Caicos with her husband Matthew for a much-needed vacation. They check into the Sapphire Oyster, a luxurious resort where they meet Marcus Johnson, a charming employee who offers them an exclusive conch harvesting tour. Julia's normal life revolves around her high-stress job, and she's looking forward to a relaxing getaway. Meanwhile, Marcus gathers personal information about the couple in preparation for his scam. This is so much better than the chapter 1 that I generated in the last Story Engine 101. So I think that would be pretty good. In general, I think that you should always look for opportunities at each step of the way to make it your own and customize it and bring your own ideas to the party. But this strikes me as a decent amount of like plot for a chapter for Story Engine.
Yeah.
While on the boat ride with Marcus, Julia notices him acting strangely. She overhears Marcus talking on the phone about accessing their bank accounts and realizes that he has been stealing money from their personal information. So I think that this is like probably too direct or something. I have never written in this genre, so I'm not sure how to rewrite this. Julia feels torn between confronting Marcus.
It's always funny sometimes how he's going to do the beats with that, and that's where normally I change the story in more reality. Because in the synopsis, it's very hard to get it to do in the beats and then the prose after that.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that your style, like you were saying, Ryan, I know for me, when I write a thriller, my style is really, really important as far as directing the tone of the story or the tone of the character. And that really drives what that style is or the feel of the chapter itself.
Yeah. Is there something you think that we should add that would help with this issue of the too obvious clue?
I'd like to see what he's going to do with it. See if he's
Yeah.
going to bring it to the beach, because today is doing very bizarre thing. I tell you, he's changing sex of people.
Yeah.
He's changing name of the husband as a child. He did a lot of things today.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
very
we'll
bizarre,
see.
yeah.
so if you do two different ones, Ryan, do one that shows it as having a dark, gritty tone to it,
Uh-huh.
intense, and then do one that has a gumshoe, old world feel to it. So change it for the next running that you do, and then see how it impacts your prose.
Yeah. Rose. Here, let me revert this back to what it was, because we'll do our experiment. There's only so many experiments we can do at once. So first let's look at beats, because for the folks who are new to Story Engine, beats are worth an explanation.
Mhm.
So basically, if a chapter is going to be a few thousand words, this one paragraph is not quite enough footholds for the AI to write, thousands of words. So we need some sort of way of breaking out this paragraph into a more detailed outline of the chapter. And so that's what beats are. Joan, do you want to ask your question now?
I wondered if I noticed that you use in a sentence when you wanted to do 2 or 3 things, you use commas in the style box to separate it. And I wonder if it also understands, if AI understands dashes.
It should be fine. Now, I would say that yeah, so punctuation, like people have experimented a lot with punctuation. And sometimes you'll get like one crazy dramatic result. You'll be like, oh my God, I swear by ampersands. Because one time I got this magical result with ampersands, but it's not super robust, honestly.
Okay.
So I would say, like, if you just use commas, that will kind of work. Dashes will probably kind of work. If you do something like a dinkus, like star star star, all caps, dark and gritty tone, this will probably like pop through to the AI a little more clearly. But the more you do this, the more you run the risk of confusing the AI, because there's only so much structure and formatting it can really understand all at once.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move forward now. Similarly with the capitalization, some people swear by the capitalization. Will we be able to rewatch the recording? Yes. So let's look at these beats. What does it suggest? And you can always verify which chapter you're looking at with this text on the top. So Julia Yeager, successful corporate lawyer, blah, blah, blah. So she's basically arriving at the island. I'm hoping that by the end of this chapter, there's some sort of promise or hook or, cliffhanger that would be exciting.
The number 7 is too direct. It's too soon.
And you have to add that you want number 15 to be a cliffhanger if you want it to be a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Like cliffhanger. So 7, introduce hints of Marcus's scam. Well, I'll start from 1. Introduce Julia Yeager, successful corporate lawyer, and husband Matthew. Arriving to their vacation in South Caicos. I'm going to write, describe the plane as small and crafty. and use lots of sensory descriptions of the not exotic, of the island, including smells. Describe the Sapphire Oyster Resort. I'm going to say describe the journey to the Sapphire Resort, guided by, what's the scammer's name? Marcus, who appears very kind initially. Then describe the, I'm going to break this out into 2 beats actually. The car, during the car ride, Marcus introduces the couple to the island and its unique traits. Now I'm going to say 3, describe the Sapphire Oyster, a 5-star hotel with private beach spa and restaurant. So now it's trying to introduce Marcus. So I'll just delete that because
I would tell it to describe it in vivid detail.
in vivid detail. Okay. And then we'll say Marcus escorts the couple across the resort grounds. And then we'll instead show Julia's eagerness to take the tour as a chance to unwind from her high stress job. I don't really like that much.
I'd be careful with number 4 because you
Yeah.
already have them going, being escorted, and you're seeing the description, so it may cause a loop.
Yep. So I would say Marcus drops the couple off at their room and they begin to unpack and unwind, discussing what to do first while they are on the island. Marcus asks if they need anything and seems suspiciously clingy. I'm interested to do this because this seems like a pretty challenging thing to suggest. I don't know how to write this. And so I'm curious to see how the AI does. And that will be a good way to test the difference between the 2 different prose options here. So I'm going to stop it at 3-4 just for the sake of time and being able to focus on, a certain amount. And I'm actually going to delete chapter 2 here because I don't think we have time to go to that. So I'm actually going to create 2 copies of chapter 1. And for each one, we'll test one of the 2 main models. So I'm going to click generate most accurate first. And while this generates, Joan, let me know what your question is. You still have your hand raised. No question? Okay. The small plane's engine whirs as we descend toward the island of South Caicos, its azure waters beckoning me away from the monotony of my life. Remember, this is first person present tense. My husband, Matthew, grips my hand tightly, his excitement palpable. So I don't like his excitement palpable. I want to either, personally, that's too telly for my taste. I look at him, my curly brown hair whipping against my face. That's kind of an awkward way to introduce my hair. But anyways, I smile back, hoping to assuage the unease that stirs within me. So yeah, to me, this is not succeeding on the show don't tell thing, because it's like, I don't want it to say, I smile back, hoping to assuage the unease. But let's keep going. Almost there, he whispers, pressing a warm, reassuring kiss. As the plane's wheels touch down, the scent of salty air and fragrant tropical flowers fills my nostrils. The doors open. Matthew and I step into the sun-drenched tarmac, squinting against the glare. I take in our new surroundings. Swaying palm trees and white sands stretch out before us, a stark contrast to the cold concrete jungle we left behind. Julia, Matthew, a man calls out to us, waving enthusiastically. He introduces himself as Marcus, our guide for the duration of our stay. His smile is infectious, and I can't help but return it as we shake hands. Welcome to paradise, he says. That's I find that kind of cheeky.
What's that mean when it says avoids repeating words? What you said there in
Avoid
the
filtering words to style. I don't know what that means. AI, if you want to unmic and tell us what a filtering word is. Filters and fillers. In general, I find that the AI struggles with when you tell it to avoid something. Sometimes it will just do it anyway. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
make it more like a page turner for the reader too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit of missing excitement there.
Okay. Let's try make it a page turner and exciting to read. So we have to truncate this a little bit. I'm going to write first person present tense from Julia's
POV.
POV. GPT knows what filtering words are. Great. Okay. So I'm just going to skim this now to see, did it follow my commands? So South Caicos is known for its beautiful beaches, stunning coral reefs. Really? Absolutely. The island is teeming with exotic birds. Wild horses. Indeed. True testament to the untamed beauty of South Caicos. Here we are. As we exit the car, can't help but be awed by the resort's luxurious facade. Sapphire oyster looms before us, an architectural marvel that seems to rise out of the sand like a majestic sea creature. I like that. That's kind of cool. I want to know what kind of sea creature, but again, something for you to respond to. Its white walls shimmer in the sunlight, beckoning us towards its lavish embrace. Marcus leads us through the grand entrance. I'm struck by the opulence that surrounds us. So I would definitely iterate on the style box to try to push this prose in a direction that's more grounded in sensory details, but I think best prose will also be better. This place is incredible. Only the best for our guests. We step outside. Your restaurant serves the finest local cuisine. He brings them to a bungalow. Your room is through here. Wow, I whisper, this is amazing. Is there anything else you need before I let you settle in? Marcus asks, his gaze lingering on me for a moment too long. So most accurate, this model is good at following these specific instructions, like make him a little too clingy. His smile seems warm, but I can't shake the feeling that there's something lurking beneath the surface, like a predator sizing up its prey. Another tip and trick I have is don't forget that you have a delete key, because you can just delete that. And sometimes that's easier than revising style and regenerating and reading it again. If all you need to do is delete, just delete and then move on. Sometimes that's the best way forward. No, thank you. We'll be fine. Very well, he says, taking a step back. I'm always just a phone call away if you need anything at all. Thank you. Giving Marcus a friendly nod. As the door clicks shut behind them, I turn to Matthew. Yeah, I would just, again, like just delete this. So, what should we do first? Let's head to the beach. Agreed, I say, grabbing my swimsuit. Delete. So now let's compare this to the best prose model. I'll try out that style that you have there after we look at best prose, and then we'll see if most accurate with a very different style box is better or not.
Keep in mind, you can also put that inside of the command beats up at the very top and above your beats.
Yep. So
And
a pro tip, which Mira Gold here is a pro user, so she knows about it, but not everyone does. You can write stuff in here. So you can be like, you know, please use gritty and detailed tight POV or whatever it is that you want. And it will take that into account as a sort of extra instruction space.
I heard somebody mention that you can use double brackets as well as single brackets. Is there a, is that more emphasis? I don't know, or is that just a fallacy? I don't know. Is that,
so I would say my opinion at this point in time is similar to what I said to Joan earlier about punctuation.
Yeah.
Well, on a case-by-case basis, yeah, maybe double brackets will do slightly more separation. But I think it's kind of similar to like communicating with a human, where you know, there's certain people where, you know, no matter how much you bold and underline things, they still won't read it carefully.
So you're shouting at the AI, basically.
Yeah. And, you know, there's other people where, so for example, I think the most reliable way to add extra clarity and extra emphasis is to say the same thing twice with slightly different wording.
Okay.
That works, I think, for humans and for AI pretty well. We're like, you know, show, don't tell. And by that, I mean, use sensory descriptions and action. Don't, you know, tell me what's going on in the character's head, that kind of thing. I think I also learned recently there's a term for this, which is objective. So one thing you could play with is, say, first person objective.
Okay, yeah.
That might help reduce some of this, like telling us what's in everyone else's head.
Okay.
Great point. Think of the AI as a 5-year-old. It's like a savant gene. It's an idiot savant is one way to think of it.
Okay.
Okay, so let's read best prose. The plane rumbles as it descends onto the tiny airstrip, kicking up dust and debris. I wrinkle my nose at the acrid smell of exhaust and peer out the window at palm trees swaying under a vibrant blue sky. South Caicos, our tropical paradise for the next 2 weeks. Matthew squeezes my hand, his eyes bright. Almost there, babe. My stomach flutters with nerves in anticipation. It's been so long since we've had time alone together. Work has consumed me for months, and the stress has taken its toll on our relationship. I'm hoping this trip will be a chance for us to reconnect. So, by default, best prose does a better job of show, not tell. It just kind of has, I just kind of think of it as it has show, don't tell just baked into it. But I anticipate that it might veer from our beats a little bit more than most accurate. So we'll see if that happens. The plane rolls to a stop and the pilot swings open the cockpit door. Welcome to paradise. Mr. and Mrs. Yeager, I'm Marcus Johnson, your driver. Welcome to South Caicos. Give you a quick tour of the island along the way. So interestingly, so yeah, here's an example of where it's, you know, taking its creative freedoms here. It budgeted a lot of words for this arriving in the plane sequence, and then it really skipped over the, you know, introducing the island. Marcus points out beaches and landmarks, but I'm only half listening, studying him from the corner of my eye. Something isn't right here, but I can't quite put my finger on what, which I think is kind of cool. Maybe a little early for her to already be suspicious of Marcus.
there wouldn't be a lot of description there if she's ignoring everything.
Yeah. We finally pull up to the Sapphire Oyster. Here we are. Paradise awaits. He insists. I like the insist because that gets at the clinginess that we wanted. The spa features lavish treatment rooms, a plunge pool, a yoga pavilion. I like, this detail plunge pool. Like that's I just find that the word choice and the concept choice of best prose is just a little bit more artistically refined to me compared to most accurate. Like what were the things that it had? It uses descriptors like lavish. Like when I hear lavish, like I don't really picture anything visually in the way that I do for like plunge pool. That's a
Right.
lot more visual for me. The open
Right.
air restaurant has stunning views of the ocean. Our villa is like a small mansion. Marcus drops us off with an oily smile. Please let me know if there's anything else I can do for you. We're all set. Did you get a strange vibe from him? From who, Marcus? He seems great. Matthew shrugs. Friendly guy, knew a lot about the island. Why? This does seem to do a good job of taking the red herring thing into account, of Matthew pretending or acting like he doesn't know anything. You worry too much, Jules. I like the use of Jules. That's clever. We're on vacation. Time to relax. I nestle against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. He's right. We're safe here. A little sun and sand will do me good. This is so persuasive. Like, I do really believe that she was anxious and then Matt convinced her to chill out. I think the steady beat of the heart does a good job showing not telling there, and a little sun and sand will do me good, I think kind of sells it.
Hey, Ryan, there's a
Yeah.
question in the chat. Says sometimes the AI doesn't generate the text in the style I want it to. And so you might want to talk about that.
Yeah. Our need. So it's hard to know without seeing the exact examples. In general, I would say there must be something in the other boxes that is communicating implicitly to the AI that you want a different style. So for example, if I said like, write this story in the style of a children's book, but then the plot points were like, 300, where there's like graphic violence and stuff, then that's like really hard for the AI because it feels like it's getting mixed signals. So I'm not sure exactly, Armid, if for the example you're talking about, and apologies if I pronounced your name wrong.
You actually said it right. A lot of people get it wrong, like the H is silent.
Okay.
But yeah, what keeps happening is I do put it in the brackets. So I've been using the example that Nicole and Mindy they have on the Google spreadsheet.
Mm.
And then I tell it how I want my sentences formatted. Like I want varied sentences. I don't just want like the way it I tell it the kind of sentences that I want. But like when it's the output that it's giving for the prose, it's not giving me the type of sentences that I want. So I still have
which model are you using? The most accurate
to
one?
best prose.
Interesting. Okay. So one possibility is that best prose is supposed to be worse at following directions than most accurate. So if we interpret following instructions to mean like following your style.
Yeah, it works in most accurate. Like when I give it that instruction, it works in most accurate, but it does not work in best prose.
So possibly for your situation, so like in general, like there's two. So let's assume that your most accurate prose is like not so beautiful, but your best prose one is not following your instructions. You have two choices. You can, if you want to make best prose work, then you have to beef up your beats to be more specific about what you want. Whereas if you want to use most accurate, then you need to iterate with your style box and also add in, beef up more beats, but focusing in on how you want the prose to feel for those parts. So I guess, yeah, I would say if you're finding that changes to style are not enough, basically, then I would focus in on beats and see if there's extra information you can add to the beats that will make that translation step easier. So for example, let's say if in style you wrote like, describe how everything smells, but then your beat is like, there's a chase scene in the alley. The AI has to have that cognitive leap of like, okay, which smell will I describe? So if you add to the beat, you can say like, describe the trash. Then it's that cognitive leap is easier of, okay, she said I'm supposed to describe how things smell, and trash is what I should describe for this beat. So basically, like, see if there's ways that you can make that cognitive leap for the AI a little bit easier. By the way, in general, most accurate will write more than best prose. So if word count is like a major goal of yours, now personally, I feel like I can keep more of the best prose stuff. So in that way, it may end up being more words, but let's see if this prose that Miragold gave us the new style. Let's with active voice, no fillers. I just replaced it wholesale. Let's see if we can see a big difference.
I put in there the tone of the story, how you want the tone to be too. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of flat and will not give you, like if you're wanting a dark or edgy tone, it's not going to get that to you unless you instruct it to. And it doesn't
Still
always
get this feeling the weight of her professional life evaporate beneath the warm embrace of South Caicos, which we would hope would be sorry, I keep on accidentally hitting the back button. So we said get rid of fillers. Yeah, so I think that we need to tell most accurate, like, it's switched, by the way. If you refresh the page, it will sometimes switch the order of these, which is just a known issue that we're going to solve eventually. But we are a little bit over time-wise, but are there any other last questions? We can take maybe one or two more questions if anyone has one. That's interesting. If I write out beats in my own voice, I get prose in my voice closer to the style I want. If I take beats to ChatGPT or Claude and get them expanded or rewritten by AI, the actual prose mirrors the style and voice of AI. Is this something you've noticed? Yes. Does prose mirror the tone/style of your voice and beats? Definitely. This is similar to what I was saying earlier to Armid. Everything this is kind of complicated, but everything is implicitly telling the AI what you want in every way possible. It's really trying to read in between the lines. Like, you can imagine if a sleazy business salesperson told you that they wanted you to make you a website, and they didn't actually say like, make me a sleazy website, but every sentence they said just exuded sleazy business guy. You would give them what felt like a sleazy business guy website, because you would just be reading between the lines, like, oh, it sounds like this guy, cares about padding the numbers and puffing out his chest, so I will just give him more of that. And so similarly, if you describe your story in a very cold, calculated, robotic way, it will try to give you more of that, because it just assumes that it assumes that everything is meaningful, including your tone and your example, like the examples you give. Like if you said, describe a monkey who tells jokes in French, like that's a quirky thing to describe. And so that communicates the story has a quirky tone. even if you didn't write in your style box, the story has a quirky tone. It I like to say every part of the prompt is equal parts content as well as style or tone. So that's just one thing you can look at is, I think that there's a rational explanation for everything, even if it appears random at first. And so I like to sort of picture, channel your inner Velma, like from Scooby-Doo, and, ask yourself like, okay, something in here is telling the AI that I might possibly want it to say, feeling the weight of my professional life evaporate beneath the warm embrace of South Caicos. So I would then go look through. And so, for example, it says she's a successful corporate lawyer in beat 1. Like it's reiterating that. So maybe that is what's communicating to the AI. Oh, I should mention her job in this opening paragraph. Maybe if I then try and delete that aspect of the stress weighing on her won't come to the forefront quite so much.
Can I ask a quick question, Ryan?
Sure.
It's off tangent a bit. It's those two prose. It's labelled them as both most accurate, but one is actually the best prose. Is that a bug? Because that happens all the time with me, and then I forget which is which.
Yeah, yeah. It's something that we know we should change. It's just a matter of prioritization. In the meantime, you might want to just label
I'll label it somewhere else. Okay. Yeah,
label.
that one makes sense. Yeah, okay.